John and Ed, they're on patrol, chasing shadows, heart and soul. Cryptid hunter UFO, down this rabbit hole they go. In the woods and on the street, whispers follow their heartbeat. Alien eyes, giant's feet, old got shadows they all meet. Down the rabbit hole they dive, midnight secrets start to thrive. Mysteries keep them alive. In the dark, does truth survive? Haunted houses, midnight calls, endless echoes in the halls. Ghostly murmurs, secret falls, every clue, they chase them all. Whispers follow their heartbeat. Alien eyes, giant's feet, all got shadows they all meet. Down the rabbit hole they dive, midnight secrets start to thrive. Mysteries keep them alive. In the dark, does truth survive? Haunting walls, they've got the key. Hidden fears, they set them free. Cryptid hunter, you and me. Down this rabbit hole, let's see. Unseen worlds, they've got the key. Hidden fears, they set them free. Cryptid hunter, you and me. Down this rabbit hole, let's see.
Good evening. Right, hiccups already. It's not transmitting on Cult, so I've had to kill that stream. Can I hear you? Are you muted?
Yeah, no, I'm muted. Sorry.
Yeah, good evening, Ed.
Good evening.
Oh. Right, sorry. There we go. Thank you for attending this evening. We are going to dig into some things that have gone on recently in the UFO world, which is quite annoying that it's not transmitting on the Cult of UFO for some reason, but hey, we'll get over that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do what we did last week on the rabbit. We're going to play a little video for you. It's a shorter one, it's only 7 minutes, but you can enjoy it, and then Ed and I will dig into our discussion. Here we go. The wind howled like a banshee across the frozen wastelands of Antarctica, its icy fingers clawing at the edges of our insulated gear. I'd been part of covert operations before, missions that blurred the lines between reality and the surreal. but nothing could have prepared me for what we found in that cave. It started with an encrypted directive from command: recover unidentified object, extreme caution advised. The coordinates pointed to a cavern near the base of Mount Erebus, a site that was shrouded in both scientific curiosity and whispered myths. The locals, and by locals I mean the scientists stationed at McMurdo, they spoke in hushed tones about strange phenomena in the area, unexplainable lights, electromagnetic anomalies, and whispers carried on the wind. Our team, a Black Ops unit trained for recovery missions under extreme conditions, was briefed to expect anything, but even then, we weren't ready for this. We descended into a cave. We had to use old-fashioned headlamps because, for some reason, our night vision goggles wouldn't work. Our headlamps were slicing through the oppressive darkness. The air inside was unnaturally still, as if the cave itself was holding its breath. Frost clung to every surface, glittering like shards of broken glass under our lights. At first, it seemed like any other ice cave, until we reached the chamber. There it was, an egg-shaped object, roughly 6 feet tall and 4 foot wide, resting on a pedestal of black stone that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Its surface was smooth but etched with hieroglyphs, unlike any I'd ever seen. They weren't Egyptian. No, these symbols were almost otherworldly. And it was as if they almost pulsated with an inner light, like oil and water. "What the hell is this?" muttered Carter, our tech specialist. His voice echoed eerily in the chamber. I approached cautiously, my gloved hand hovering over the surface. The air around it felt warmer than it should have been, especially given our surroundings. It was as if the object radiated its own heat. A heartbeat in the cold void. Carter began scanning the hieroglyphs with a portable device designed for linguistic analysis. "These aren't in any known database," he said after a few minutes. But, wait, he paused, his brow furrowing beneath his goggles. "Some of these patterns resemble ancient Sumerian cuneiform, and others look vaguely Mayan." "How is that possible?" I asked. "Your guess is as good as mine," he replied, "but whatever this is, it's old, really old." As we debated its origins, something strange happened. It was as if the symbols were moving or shifting subtly in the light and rearranging themselves as if they were responding to our presence. Don't get me wrong, this wasn't an overt change, it was almost undetectable. One by one, they formed into a new sequence. Was it a message? A warning? Protocol dictated that we secure the object and transport it back to base for further analysis. That was easier said than done. As soon as we attempted to lift it from the pedestal, the ground beneath us trembled violently. A low-frequency hum filled the chamber. It was resonating deep within our bones. "Let's move now," I shouted. We scrambled out of the cave just as a fissure split open behind us. The pedestal and surrounding ice collapsed into an abyss that appeared bottomless. Thankfully our harness held, and we managed to retrieve the egg-shaped object. Outside, the storm had intensified. Snow whipped around us in blinding sheets as we loaded the object onto our transport sled. I couldn't shake the feeling that we'd awakened something, that this wasn't just an artifact, but maybe a sentinel guarding secrets long buried and long hidden beneath Antarctica's icy expanse. As we made our way back to base camp, strange phenomena began to occur. Our GPS systems malfunctioned. Compasses spun wildly, as if caught in an electromagnetic vortex. Shadows danced at the edges of our vision. Figures that disappeared when we turned to look directly at them. Then came the voices, faint, almost undetectable whispers carried on the wind, speaking in a language none of us could understand, but all felt compelled to listen to. "Well, what's happening?" Carter asked, panic creeping into his voice. "I don't know," I admitted, "but let's just keep moving." Back at base camp, scientists and linguists were brought in to study the artifact under heavy security. Days turned into weeks as they worked tirelessly to decode the secrets. One breakthrough came when they discovered some of the hieroglyphs matched constellations visible only from Earth's southern hemisphere. A celestial map. But to where? Then came another revelation. Embedded within the artifact's structure was a series of pulsating signals, radio waves broadcasting into space at intervals too precise to be natural. "It's not just an artifact," one scientist whispered during a briefing. "It's a beacon." Before long, the higher-ups classified everything about the mission under layers of red tape thicker than an Antarctic ice sheet. We were debriefed and sworn to secrecy under threat of treason. But I can't stay silent, not after what happened next. 2 weeks after we recovered the artifact, satellites detected an anomaly near Earth's orbit. An unidentified object moving towards us at impossible speeds before vanishing without a trace. And then there were the reports, unconfirmed but chilling, of strange lights over Mount Erebus and seismic activity deep beneath its surface. I don't know what we brought back from that cave, or what forces we might have unleashed by disturbing it. But one thing is certain. Antarctica holds secrets far older and far more dangerous than humanity can comprehend. And somewhere out there, something is listening. This is my story, a warning for those willing to hear it. Whether you believe me or not is up to you. But if you ever find yourself near Mount Erebus, tread very carefully. You might not like what you find, or what finds you. Hey, there we go. What do you think?
I thought it was really good. Yeah, although I will say, did you not get the memo about creepy-looking shit in creepy-looking caves in mountains with really bloody creepy names, and you should probably just leave it the fuck alone?
Yeah. Well, I mean, after Kandahar, you know, the red-haired giant.
Well, yeah. I mean, you would think lessons would be learned, but maybe not.
Yeah, so that was it wasn't that creepy, Shalini. I thought it was. Was it? Was it that creepy? Was it creepy?
Wasn't that creepy?
No, I don't
I
think
thought it was a well-told little story.
Yeah, that was a nice sweet short one. So although Beats and Tapes obviously wasn't as enthralled as he was last week because he wasn't telling people to shut up. It was him last week, wasn't it? But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed that. So that was a little bit of fiction, although there was some footage in there that has been exposed recently. You know, the green stuff was from the crash retrieval, or the egg retrieval from Antarctica, from an undisclosed location. And it's supposed to be an egg that was retrieved from Antarctica in 2022. And you saw it dangling at the end of that rope underneath the helicopter. It was pretty poor, I thought.
I can't say that I've been particularly impressed. I mean, all of this egg-related stuff recently has too much of the air of being a massive distraction from whatever they're trying to distract people from. Pick a subject.
See, the thing is, you don't need distractions, do you, really? Because there's just so much crap going on all around you that, you know, there's always something to keep your mind occupied or to go, oh, look at that. You know, if you're into UFO, I mean, the UFO people are going nuts about this. What's his name? This guy Ross Coulthard. You know, the journalist that he does. I don't know if he works for News Nation, but he appears on News Nation. He's an Australian journalist, and he's the kind of Australian version of George Knapp, except annoying. You know, I find him quite annoying, right? He's got a supercilious, shit-eating grin, a bit like Stephen Greer, that I find quite annoying, and I find him too gullible to be a proper journalist. And I think these days George Knapp's in the same boat there, because George Knapp started out as a proper investigative journalist. I had a lot of time for George Knapp, and I've recorded a script this week about George Knapp, so that'll be going up on the Cult soon. In fact, there's 3 going up on the Cult, because there's George Knapp, there's David Grush, and there's a thing about alien abductions. So they've all been recorded. They were all done yesterday. I did, what was it, 5 scripts recorded yesterday, back to back.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, it's exhausting.
I bet it is.
It's just, I mean, I didn't realise it was so I mean, my wife laughed at me when I said it was exhausting, and it's like, it takes it out of you. It really does. She goes, you need to exercise more. And I goes, it's nothing to do with exercise. It's an emotional exhaustion.
And it's also making up words too. It's also the fact of recording yourself and having to put a lot of kind of concentration into it, because it's not until you sit down to record something that you want to broadcast that you realize how much umming and ahhing and stuff that we just do naturally. And especially when you're then trying to follow a script and you fumble a word and it's like, shit, now I've got to do the whole thing again.
Well, you don't, because what I do is I just cut. You know, if I make an effort, I just keep going. I'll maybe repeat the last sentence and then I'll cut and just layer it over the top, so it's fine. Because if I'm editing it as well, so I know that I can do that. But like you were saying, I remember when we were making videos, Ben and I, when we first started, Ben would make a mistake and then he would have to record it again, and record it again. How long did that take? That recording session must have ran for about an hour and a half, because most of the scripts were 20 minutes long, which is quite a bit of speaking, and you need a bit of break in between. Sometimes I take a break halfway through, because you end up, if you're talking that long, you end up just running out of fluids. Actually,
that just sounds nasty.
It's a good thing. It's a good point you brought up there, Ed, because I don't think we do a lot of umming and ahhing these days, even live, like we are just now.
I mean, we've done a lot of shows now, so it's much more relaxed. And there is a bit of an umming and ahhing, because that's just what people do when they talk. But hopefully it's not too much and doesn't drive the audience crazy or anything.
I was illustrating a point on Twitter, saying that because people were going on about how men shouldn't be looking after themselves to the point where they're getting facial surgery and things like that to make themselves look better, because it's never been about looks for men. It really hasn't. And yet now,
there's plenty of arguments out there that you see that say that certainly some men actually get better looking with the age. Like fine wine, you look a bit more distinguished. Bit of silver in your hair and your beard and stuff adds an air of distinction.
But these people,
you only have to take a look at Simon Cowell to realise that all that plastic surgery is just a really bad idea.
He's got
Simon Cowell and Katie Price are just like, kids. Don't do it.
It's just massive heads, isn't it? But it's like So I was comparing it to the Mouse Utopia one. Remember the beautiful ones, the mice that would just preen themselves all day. They weren't interested in sex.
I suppose if they'd had access to plastic surgery, they would have been getting that as well.
Yeah, they probably would have been.
You know,
And
the one that really creeped me out is Larry Ellison and his bloody blonde hair. I mean, the guy's like in his 70s or something.
Mhm.
And it's just, it doesn't look right. It doesn't have an air of being someone important. He just looks like this sad old man that seems to want to pretend that he's young again or something. I don't know what it's about. I find it very odd,
Yeah.
particularly with men. I mean, with women, there's more of a pressure to kind of do the Botox and all that kind of nonsense. But again, it doesn't look any better. It's like when they get the lip fillers and you have the stupid trout pout, and it's just like, no, you just look stupid. But
Yeah.
nobody's prepared to tell you because you've just spent thousands and thousands of pounds or dollars on.
I mean, basically, they've
bloody-
spent thousands of pounds making their lips look like an anus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ridiculous.
But it's
A
really-
prolapsed one at that.
Yeah, yeah. A baboon's anus. But yeah. So so going back to the point at hand, which was and should be the egg retrieval videos. So that's one that Russ Coulthard exposed, which he had been bumming up. You know, this is disclosure. This is a game changer. This is going to show us, you know, that we're going to require answers for this. And he'd been bumming this up, and they've been putting trailers out, and it dropped on us. First of all, if it's disclosure and it's that good, why wouldn't you just put it out? Why do you have to bum it up? But anyway.
Because you got to make your money.
Exactly. So 12 seconds of video that came out. 12 seconds of video of what appears to be, and I don't know what it is, but it looks like a plastic egg. You know, a big plastic egg in a hammock at the end of a long line. You don't even know if it's on an actual helicopter or not. In fact, the whole thing has a look of it being filmed on a model railway layout. But
Well, it
hey,
could easily be. I mean, the thing is that these days, because of AI and CGI and the video editing that can make fake things look incredibly real,
Mhm.
actually, if you're going to fake something, doing it on sort of crappy old camera or whatever, it does kind of add an air of age to the whole thing. So you maybe, particularly for younger audiences who are completely used to the perfect CGI, that something that looks like it was filmed on an old Betamax home video recorder and is all jumpy and stuff, maybe. But to me, it was the same. It was the same non-disclosure nonsense that we've had to deal with time and time again, where you have some grainy video or it's a few seconds of something that might look a bit like an alien or an egg or an alien spaceship or whatever. And it's, I mean, nobody just shoots 12 seconds of video. So
what's the rest of it exactly?
Exactly. Where is the rest of it? If you're gonna go disclosure, then especially after all of the stuff and all of the hoaxes and everything else, you have to show your source material, not some. I mean, editing the source material like that is essentially saying, well, you can see the rest of the video, but it has to be in a secure environment. We need a skiff, man. Seriously.
So the thing that I don't get is you can't actually call either of these two eggs that have been allegedly retrieved recently. You can't call either of them a UFO, which is what they are doing. They're calling them UFOs, but they don't fly. You found one in a cave allegedly, and you found one slung underneath a helicopter. So it's not flying of its own volition. It's being carried. But they're not UFOs. You don't know if they can fly or not.
We don't know. I mean, you have no real idea about size. You've got no idea what's in them. I mean, is it a bloody dragon egg or a dinosaur egg or a fossilized brontosaurus egg? I don't know.
Hey,
it could be anything. There's no lights on it. There's no control surfaces. There's no visible propulsion source. It's just a freaking egg. I mean, it could be, I don't know, maybe they discovered the lair of the bloody Easter bunny or something. Seriously, it's too.
That's about as valid as any other explanation at this
Yeah.
point in time.
I mean, I saw all the pre-videos that they were doing. It's like, disclosure, it's coming. We're going to disclose everything, and it's like, oh, here we go again.
Mhm.
Boring. And it's just another bloody red herring. I mean, it's not disclosure. It doesn't prove anything. It's not. There's no definitive proof. There's no document trail. There's nothing. I mean, if it was a half-hour video showing them going into the cave and seeing this thing and this thing then coming off the ground, or something other than just what looked like a rather boringly coloured Easter egg.
Well, to me, it just looked like a fiberglass shape. I mean, the whole thing's just ridiculous, and even then, you've got people that I thought were semi-sensible. You're like, that guy. What are you laughing at?
Just this notion that you would think that, I mean, especially when it comes to this kind of thing, this is 2025. There isn't any such thing as half sensible. Literally, I mean, people seem to fall for the most blatantly, ridiculously transparent nonsense, and you'll have a section of whichever Twitter it is, UFO Twitter or whatever, that will jump on it and defend it. And the minute you start being a bit skeptical, suddenly you're a Nazi baby killer, and you like.
So the guy that I think that used to be semi-sensible is Professor Simon Holland, who's not a professor. He just calls himself that because he's got stupid hair, which sticks straight up. He's got white hair and it sticks straight up. A bit like Giorgio Tsoukalos, except this guy's got really bad teeth. But anyway, yeah, and he lives in France. But apart from that, he used to work for the BBC as some kind of filmmaker, producer, or whatever, science filmmaker or something. Anyway, he used to make semi-sensible stuff, but he's jumped on this bandwagon UFO stuff, and he's just like lapping up these guys' words as if they're speaking the truth. I mean, he believes Ashton Forbes without any kind of skepticism, I think, and he starts to try and give him physical reasons why it could be true, and then he talks about these eggs being aerogel eggs, and as far as I'm aware, nobody's actually made an aerogel egg that's got a vacuum in it. So the whole thing's ridiculous. I think they're all jumping on bandwagons, and it's like mega grift, and I just can't do it. I can't do it. I can't go on and go, oh, that's great. I mean, like, your man Ashton Forbes was on yesterday and made the classic, and this is his grasp of physics, okay? So he makes the classic, bumblebees can't actually fly, they levitate.
I saw that.
And I'm like, holy
I saw your response to him as well.
Well, I thought my response was quite mild, generally.
I thought your response was very well founded in the science.
Yeah, exactly. It is aerodynamics, but it's brute force, because they're not terribly aerodynamic creatures, and all they do is throw muscle at it. And because they're using pollen, right, nectar of the gods, it's a pure sugar fueled purpose. So they're able to just go at it hammer and tongs, and that's how they manage to fly.
Yeah, I mean, I thought this claim that bees use harmonics to counteract gravity or something is a bit no. Just, I mean, I'm prepared to accept that sound waves have a certain amount of power, especially if you increase the volume, and that they're frequencies, and different frequencies can do different things. But it's taking something like a bumblebee or a honeybee or whatever. And if we've already established how these things fly, why would you suddenly throw that out of the window and claim that it's some sort of harmonic resonance?
Because you're either being disingenuous or you are actually stupid.
Well, in his case, he's definitely not stupid, but
Yeah.
at the same time, it's
Well, yes, you say that, right? You say he's not stupid, but he has this, he seems to have this mental block where if he believes something, it doesn't matter how much evidence you throw at him. He will just keep going down the same path. He's one of these people that will not turn once they are
but
on a
that's
certain
I mean
path.
that's not unique to him.
No, I'm not saying it is, but he is one of those people that does that.
Sure, but with humans, it's actually more rare to find someone who doesn't than someone who does. Because it also depends on the subject. Because what you said, it's once he's latched on to something that he believes in, he's not prepared to look at any evidence to the contrary. But I mean, that's so true of belief generally.
It's like that. It's like the video, the MH370 video. He won't brook any criticism of it. As far as he's concerned, the government did that and they warped that plane into another dimension.
And it's once theories turn into belief. I mean, it's one thing to have a theory and to prove it empirically and repeatedly, so that you can take it to another scientist and say, look, I've got this theory, I've done this experiment. Here's the experiment. You can replicate it, or please take this experiment away, replicate it, and let me know if you get the same result.
Yeah.
And if the other scientist follows your instructions, they get the same result. And then maybe a third scientist does it and they get the same result. And it's reproducible.
And then, by Jove, we're onto something. Yeah.
Precisely. Then you can say that we've unlocked another secret of the universe. But if you can't do that, or you're not prepared to divulge your evidence or your theories because it's trade secrets or whatever, then that just doesn't lend credibility to a scientific endeavor. I mean, if you look at a good example is Volvo, the 3-point seatbelt mechanism that we all have in all of our cars.
Yeah.
Was originally invented by Volvo in the 1970s. And instead of patenting it and making it just available on Volvos, they open sourced it and they gave it to the world because they were like, look, this invention is too important.
Yeah.
And other car companies would take Volvo's plans and they build the seatbelt and they put it in the car and it worked exactly the same bloody way that it did
In a Volvo.
when it was in a Volvo.
Yeah.
And that's the point about science, is that you have an idea, you say, I've invented something, or I've got a theory about something, or I've done an experiment and proved something, and you then show other people how to do it, and they then replicate it, and you get the same result, then you can start talking about scientific discovery. But when you have something like, particularly when it's video evidence, and particularly video evidence in the year 2025, where AI can make, I mean, you could do all sorts of stuff with Sora when it comes to disclosure.
Yeah, I know.
And you don't even need that. You can use After Effects and
Yeah.
CGI, and there's all sorts of techniques that you can use to fake video. But then to kind of to believe it at the exclusion of any other theories, I don't like to say it, but it's kind of intellectually dishonest, because you can't say you're an open-minded researcher, but you have sacred cows that can't be challenged. I mean, it's like being a climate scientist.
That's incredibly. That's exactly what I was thinking.
But it's true. I mean, or virologist, that's another good one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually frightening when you think about how much science, or what we call science, it's really not scientific at all.
It is incredible,
really
mate. It's incredible.
And it's like this, but the approach, quite often the approach to a lot of these UFO disclosures you have one section that will just dismiss it offhand without doing any research.
Yep.
And you'll have another side that will believe it offhand
Yeah.
without doing research. And then you'll have a small group somewhere in the middle that is looking at it and saying,
It's a balloon.
yeah.
So what gets me though? What gets me is that nobody these let's look. Right, I need to take a second to think about what I'm actually trying to say here. I've lost it. What were we talking about?
Evidence, eggs.
Yeah, evidence.
Science. Scientific method.
Yeah, we were. Oh, good God. I think
Ashton
I'm losing
Forbes.
it. No, don't worry
We're
about
all
it.
losing it.
I think I'm genuinely losing it.
It's like we
Right,
haven't even
okay,
hit-
here we go. So, you know that I have long held the opinion that photons don't exist. Right? Now, it's an opinion because I can't understand how light can be a particle. Right? Because if you turned off the lights and wanted to make the room dark, surely you'd have to sweep all the particles out. Right?
Yes.
Right? So, and you don't have to empty your camera after you've used it of previous light particles, right? You don't have to scour your eyeballs to get rid of the extra light when you close your eyes. It just gets dark normally. I've long held this opinion, and I think the one that kicked me off was Mr. Tesla himself, not Elon Musk, Mr. Actual Nikola Tesla, right? He kicked me off when he said, light is like sound, except through the ether and not through air. So if light needs a medium to propagate, can't be a particle. It needs to be a wave, like sound waves are. Right?
Well, I've long suspected that one of the things that science and scientists in the mainstream are very good at is taking something that's a bit that is absolutely you can prove beyond a doubt that it exists, but certain parts of its existence don't make a whole lot of sense. So they will say something like something ridiculous like light can be both a particle and a wave.
Yeah, duality and duality is an anathema to nature, in my view, right? Because nature doesn't do that. And I found someone the other day. I found a guy who has an actual theory that photons don't exist. Light is a wave, and he can explain the double slit experiment. Now that to me was a revelation. That was fantastic because it starts to, because I was looking at it not from a mathematical perspective, but from a purely observational point of view. You know, I just cannot figure out how light can be a particle, especially when you create, when light is created from within a vacuum chamber, right? You turn the light switch on, electricity stimulates the gas, or stimulates the plates at either end of a fluorescent tube or whatever, and the gas glows, and light is the result. So how can it be a particle? How does it get through, the glass? How does it travel through a vacuum? So this is why I've long thought photons don't actually exist, and I think this guy has given me hope that I might actually be right. But
that's always nice.
I'm prepared to be wrong. I just needed to be convinced either way. You know what I mean?
The thing is that unless I'm a big believer in the notion that the entirety of human knowledge thus far is probably akin standing on top of a big iceberg out in the ocean with a little
Yeah.
teaspoon, and you're scraping the top off, and you've got this little teaspoon of snow, and you think that is the complete sum of everything that exists, and there's an entire iceberg worth of knowledge in this case that we don't know about. So I'm prepared to be open-minded about some of the sacred cows, but in terms of something being two things at the same time, that doesn't seem that
doesn't sit well with me.
It doesn't exist in nature. I mean,
Exactly.
It's like water is water, air is air, and air is not, it's not a particle or a wave. You don't it just doesn't.
Air is particles, mate. Air's oxygen and nitrogen, and
sure,
it's all different particles. So air is particles. But light isn't, and sound isn't. It's like when you turn on when we're speaking to each other just now, sound is being produced by what's happening is the speaker and the headphone or whatever is vibrating the air, which is then transmitting those vibrations to your little eardrum, which is then through those tiny little bones stimulating your ear canal to actually vibrate, and then it goes down your nerves into your brain, and your brain decodes it as sound, which is an incredible thing when you think about it. It's like, well, how does that even? How do you even start to think about decoding sound? But anyway, so
it's one of the things that's always fascinated me about humans.
But the point, before I start there, I finish, the point is that nothing comes out of the speaker. Sound doesn't leave the speaker. All the speaker does is vibrate the air. The sound is only produced by your brain and your head. If there was nobody around and nothing else, the sound is there to be picked up, but it's not evident until there is something to decode it. That's not being two things at the same time. That's just being one thing at the same time.
Sure. And it's the same with light when it hits our eyes. I mean, one of the things that I've always found fascinating ever since I was a kid, that I just can't, it's just so cool that I can't even understand it, which is the fact that all of the light coming in through our eyes, our brains automatically flip it so that the image that hits your eyeballs is upside down. And so every time you open your eyes
and back to front,
your brain is essentially correcting that image in real time without you even realizing it. And it's happening so fast that there's no lag, there's no delay, or the time it takes between the light hitting your exactly. And that to me is amazing.
So they did an experiment. Gave a guy a set of glasses that flipped everything. Right? So everything that he looked at was upside down. Within 2 weeks, everything looked the right way around.
Yeah.
That's just incredible.
That's the power of the human brain.
Yeah.
And it was also this ability that we have for theorizing and for creating problems where they don't exist, and creating stresses for ourselves, or beauty as well. I mean, if you look at music, for example, I mean, one of the ones that always blows me away is Beethoven. Absolutely deaf as a post, and yet produced some of the most incredibly beautiful music that humans have ever created. How does that even work? I mean, because, you can write notes down, and I suppose in your brain you can...
I think he must have been able to feel it.
Maybe.
Through like vibration, maybe, or something.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, we know that when humans lose one of their senses, all of the other senses suddenly get heightened. And so if you lose your sense of hearing, then your senses of touch and taste and smell and sight all increase. So if you then become more sensitive to those vibrations, because your brain compensates and it knows the vibrations are there. And so if the ears don't work, it tries to pick them up in other ways.
Yeah.
And ultimately, when you think about what the ears are, the sound is essentially, apart from the hammer and the anvil, there's lots of hairs in the ear and the nose.
The canale.
Particularly the nose is a good example of that, where it's those hairs vibrating that are actually creating sense of smell. I mean,
is it? I'm not up to my biology on noses. I just know that they run.
But the point is that maybe, I mean, because we've got hair all over our bodies.
Yeah.
And it's possible that if you lose your sense of your hearing, that perhaps after a certain amount of time, there are other parts of your body that are able to pick up these vibrations in the air that our ears perceive as sound. And so if you're then able to somehow perceive those in a slightly different way, I don't know, just stuff like that just blows my mind.
Hatchie says he's lost a finger and still feels it. Phantom pain.
Phantom limb syndrome.
Yeah.
That's such a bastard.
Have you seen the experiment when they do the one with the mirror?
No.
So it can help you if you've got a phantom limb. So what they do is they mirror, say you've lost an arm, right? So they'll put a mirror up and all you can see is the two hands.
Mm.
And it can take away phantom pain. By the same token, if you've got two hands, right, what they do is they put a mirror up so you can't see the other hand, right? And then they tickle it and things like that. So you can't see it, but you can still see the two hands in your mirror. And then they pretend to hit the other hand with a hammer and you go, ow, even though they haven't hit your hand with a hammer.
I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. And I think
humans are very... Adam's talking about the rubber hand that you stab. Yeah, I think that's the same sort of thing.
But I mean, we underestimate what humans are capable of because we get dumbed down. I mean, if you look at particularly now, I made a post about it on Twitter that got quite a lot of views and likes, which is that there's been this concentrated dumbing down, and kids in school these days, it's like, I've got a great example. My grandfather was a teacher his whole life. I mean, he was a housemaster at quite a famous public school, and a physics teacher and a math teacher. And he was one of those teachers, he was brilliant, but he would never give you an answer. And it would drive you absolutely crazy. He was one of those people that would put everything in front of you
and let you
for you to figure it out yourself, but he would never, ever, ever give you the answer. And that taught you to think. And I mean, he did masses for the way that I approach life in terms of problem solving.
Yeah.
And I had an email, was it this morning or yesterday morning? I think it might have been yesterday, where a client had basically created a user in their content manager, and that user had gone to log in and they couldn't get in. And instead of going into their user profile and actually having a look at it and saying, what could this be? They sent me an email, and I didn't even need to go into the site. It's like, have you checked the access levels that you set for that user?
Yeah.
Oh, no. And ultimately I will be the soul of politeness, and I will help the client. But what I'm thinking is, you've literally just wasted my fucking time with that. Yeah. Honestly. Okay, it was only 4 minutes of my life, but that's still 4 minutes I can't get back.
as I was saying in the preamble to the show, so before we were on, I watched Demolition Man last night. Again, I rewatched it. And it's a bit like the halfway house between where we are now or where we were maybe 20 years ago and the forthcoming Idiocracy.
Mm. Yeah.
Now, I tried to watch Idiocracy, the movie, and I don't really like it. I get the concept, but I didn't really like. I wasn't enjoying the movie.
It's too stupid. I can't.
It's too stupid. But I
It's
think
like
that's the point.
Well, I watched Idiocracy with an ex-partner, and I literally had to get up and go and read a book in the bedroom because I felt my IQ dropping just watching this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, and the worst thing is that you can see the beginnings of it all around us. And I mean, this segues back into the UFO thing because one of the things that I've noticed about a certain section of the UFO community, zero critical thinking. They've decided
Exactly.
that UFOs exist.
Yeah.
They've decided that anything that can't be explained in the sky is a UFO. And if there's a researcher who they've decided that they believe, that researcher could go into a cave in a mountain
Mm-hmm.
where he's pre-placed a giant Cadbury's cream egg and pull it out, hold it up, and claim that this is, and then claim that this is one of Ashton Forbes's magical orbs.
Yeah,
which is kind of where it seemed like they were trying to go with this whole egg UFO.
Yeah,
it did seem a bit like that. It's like, oh, maybe these are the orbs.
I just don't get it. I mean, the orbs are 99% of the time out of focus stars or lights that have been filmed with shitty camera phones.
But this is the thing that, for me, is a dead giveaway for a lot of this supposed UFO footage, is that we exist in a time of smartphones with extremely good cameras, relatively speaking. I mean, everybody has got a quality camera in their pocket, pretty much. Except at
night, because
it's true.
Because the sensor is so small, it just can't gather the light that a decent camera can.
Mm-hmm. Although some of the night modes, I mean, the night mode on my phone is pretty incredible.
The night mode isn't necessarily what you're actually seeing.
It's also not video. The night mode is for pictures.
Yeah. But yeah.
Well, I mean, the night mode is actually.
Adam says,
it's like when we had the Auroras in the UK.
Samsung. Well, yeah, that was making shit up.
Well, no, I mean, that's where the night mode sensor is so sensitive that it's picking stuff up that's in the sky that the human eye can't see. It's like the Andromeda. Here's another good example. There was a picture doing the rounds of what the Andromeda galaxy would look like in the night sky if it was a bit brighter.
Yeah.
And it would actually seem like it's a lot closer.
Remember there was a picture going around as well of the moon.
Which one specifically?
Well, the Samsung moon was pretty famous. Do you not remember that one? So if you took a photograph,
I remember what I had for lunch 2 days ago.
If you took a photograph of the moon with a Samsung phone, it went back to the cloud, picked up a photo of the moon, and then displayed it on your camera as the photograph. So this is why I'm saying you're not necessarily getting a picture of what's actually out there with phones, because they're being too fucking smart and giving you what you want to see rather than what may actually be there.
Oh, yeah. But then I'm afraid quite a lot of the supposed UFO or alien autopsy footage, or, I mean, even back in the 90s, they were faking stuff. I mean, they've been faking UFO videos since the 50s and 60s, easily. And I don't know. I guess in the world of UFO fakery, you can't make it too realistic, because then everyone would see it's just a bloody Cadbury's cream egg. But you also, you can't make it too crappy, because they're like, well, I can't see anything. It's just this fuzz.
Yeah.
But I think what's actually more interesting about the phenomena to me is what you were saying earlier on about the way that people jump on it.
Mhm.
And you will have, it doesn't matter how crappy the footage is or how obviously it looks like an out of focus airplane,
Yeah.
or a streetlight reflected in a window.
Yep.
Because there's one where there was a video of people, they were inside looking out through glass, and they were like, what are those weird reflections? And it's bloody lights on the DVD player or street lights or something. But at the same time, a video like that will go up, and there'll be people that jump on it and start believing it. And if you try and say that's just a street light, you just get pounded with hate.
Mhm.
And it's just like you're suddenly
So
the worst human being on the planet because you're questioning.
I've been digging
something.
into the abduction side of things more than anything. And if I read an article by a couple of psychologists from Harvard who and she was pretty good. She was explaining why she thought the whole thing was, in your own head, But that doesn't mean you don't believe it happened. But it still doesn't mean that it actually did happen, because most of these things are probably tied into things like sleep paralysis and whatever. And it's like and unfortunately there is a group of psychologists who go about, or who went about, investigating these things with hypnosis. And hypnosis has really been found to be very, very dodgy now when trying to recover memories, because 90% of the time it's implanting them instead of getting memories back.
Mm.
Especially if the person doing the hypnosis is leading the witness, so to speak. Because I'm watching some of these interviews, and it's like, that's a leading question. That's a leading question. That's a leading question. I'm looking at it from an evidential point of view, and the person that's doing the hypnosis is leading the witness to say what he wants them to say. And that's not scientific, and it's evidence that would be flung out of a courtroom. So why would we expect it? Why should we accept it anywhere else?
Well, because there's a certain section of the population who want to believe and don't really seem to care where the evidence comes from. If it's mildly convincing, because they want so badly to believe that something is true. Now, I should caveat that by saying that in the entire immensity of the universe, to say that there are no other sentient beings like us,
Mm-hmm.
maybe different forms, I think is a supreme arrogance.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I've
actually.
Why they would want to come and visit Clown World, I don't know, unless some sort of theatre.
Well, that's the point, right? I'm pretty much certain that there's a high chance that other aliens exist elsewhere in the universe, right? But the problem that we're back to is distance and the energy and the time that's required to get anywhere in the universe.
And if you could solve those problems, why would you, unless it's some sort of weird alien anthropological experiment, why the hell would you come to some backwards, violent, primitive child race who's seems to be constantly 5 seconds away from blowing themselves up, and treats anything alien with a degree of suspicion that if we saw an alien ship in the sky, we'd probably start shooting at the bloody thing. It's like that clip in Independence Day where the big alien ship has just hovered over Los Angeles, and Will Smith is waking up in the morning, And it's on the radio saying the mayor is reminding Angelinos not to shoot their guns at the alien spaceship because you might inadvertently trigger an interstellar war. I mean, that's humans.
Yeah, but that's kind of what happened in New Jersey. Please don't shoot at the planes. I mean, some dude was out there with a laser, pointer, pointing it at what he said were orbs and drones. And some guy comes back to him going, "Thanks, I was a pilot of that Cessna that you shined the green laser at. Luckily, you didn't get me in the eyes. Thanks very much." Freaking idiocracy, right enough.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think certain sections of the human population are further along the road to idiocracy than others. But the world seems to be doing its best to make people more stupid. I mean, I don't think that's exclusively true. It's like one interesting thing that I didn't know, which comes from people who have emigrated to Russia with their kids, is that foreign kids automatically start 2 years below Russian kids.
Yeah.
Because the Russian education system is, I guess, much more hardcore, and they're teaching kids more advanced things at an earlier age.
Yeah.
And when you look at the way that Russians have handled sanctions and what they're doing with their country right now, you can see the benefits of that. But I found that interesting because the West likes to think we're so advanced and we're so clever about everything, and that the Russians particularly, we have a certain section of Western society that sees Russians in this sort of backward kind of, it's just a gas station masquerading as a country kind of nonsense. When actually Russia's produced an awful lot of some of the greatest scientists and musicians and chess players and all kinds of different people come from Russia.
Yeah.
And it's just an example of arrogance and idiocracy. Because it's like the Western people are saying, "Oh, we're so clever," but when you want to put your kids in a school in Moscow, they have to start 2 years below their peer group because Western schools aren't teaching them the same things.
Yeah, and everything's getting worse, isn't it? I mean, I was in the shop today, and the woman behind the counter said, "There's talk that the schools are going to be off tomorrow," and I'm going, "What for?" And she goes, because of the wind that's meant to be coming. And I'm like, just what have we done to ourselves? Why do we behave like this? Because I said to her, I remember going to school when the snow was like knee deep and walking there on my own when I was like 6 years old. And she's like, "Yeah, me too." And I said, what have we done to ourselves? It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, it's this whole notion that we had to start naming storms. But then when you think about it, it all ties into the larger agenda of climate change, because we have to be terrified of the climate and we have to be terrified of CO2 emissions, and we have to go along with all of everything that these authoritarian dickheads want, like this climate and nature bill that's getting its second reading in the House of Commons tomorrow and seems like a complete authoritarian bloody nightmare in the making. But in order to be able to pass that kind of authoritarian stuff, they have to have people frightened. And so they name the storms because somehow, I don't know, I mean, because they started naming hurricanes because hurricanes cause so much damage.
Well, they've named hurricanes and typhoons for as long as I can remember. But
it's, I mean, that's different because, I mean, typhoons and hurricanes actually kill people, and you have to be prepared for them, and they can easily cause masses of problems if the place that they're about to hit is not prepared for them. So giving it a name, it's like typhoon this or typhoon that, Hurricane Andrew or whatever that. Okay, I can understand that, because I think the reason they did it is that for human psychology, it's easier the fact that your house was destroyed by Hurricane Andrew than your house was destroyed by Hurricane 578421. But when
Your
it
house
comes
was
to
destroyed by act of God.
yeah. But at the same time, when it comes to the UK's winter storms, we live on a little island in the North Atlantic, and the North Atlantic in winter is one of the most treacherous fucking places on the planet, apart from the South Atlantic in winter. And we get storms regularly, but suddenly we have to name them, and they're all so scary. And everyone has to. It's like we close school for a bit of snow. We close school for a bit of wind. I mean, it's insanity. And it teaches.
Yeah.
What's worse is that it teaches kids that these are things to be afraid of and to hide away in fear from, rather than just adapting and getting on with it.
So it's someone on Twitter in the States has said they had a snow day. And
Yeah, but the snow days in America is when it's like 15 feet.
No, hold on. That's America's just as bad as us these days. They had a snow day, and there was less than a quarter inch of snow on the ground.
Yeah, but was that Florida?
No, I don't think it was. That's ridiculous.
Because I mean, there's been some crazy snow footage from Florida and Alabama, and
Did you see the guys? Did you see the guys in Louisiana getting pulled over in his airboat?
Yeah. There was another one with Florida. I think it was Louisiana, where it was like this is the gritter lorries running, and it was a pickup truck with a guy sprinkling salt off the back.
Throwing salt off the back with a shovel.
And I mean, okay, that's the US is under some sort of weird cold thing at the moment, which is very strange because it's one of the coldest places on the planet right now.
Yeah, just a cold bomb thing. It happens occasionally. It comes down from the north, and it's all to do with the jet stream. If the jet stream comes low, then the cold follows it.
Well, the jet stream is impacted by the geomagnetic field, and we've recently had lots of solar activity because we're at sunspot maximum at the moment.
Yeah.
And those things, and we've got the weakening of the Earth's magnetic field, which is a fact. It's not a conspiracy theory. And you have increased energy from the sun. It's going to do weird shit with the climate. There's also the Hunga Tonga volcanic eruption a few years ago, which deposited billions and billions of liters of water into the atmosphere, which takes years to cycle through the system completely.
And what's the most effective greenhouse gas known? Water vapor. Water vapor.
Like much more so than CO2.
Yeah, water vapor.
And every time, and even if it's CO2, every time a volcanic eruption goes off, that's the entire amount of CO2 that humans have emitted in our industrial history, released into the atmosphere in about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And yet we'll have to, let's not go down that one because we'll end up getting censored by screw YouTube. But it's just a massive pile of nonsense. But the thing that, and to me, it's a similar phenomenon with UFOs and climate and pretty much everything in this day and age, is that people aren't being taught to be resilient and adaptable, which ultimately is the reason that humans have survived as long as we have, despite being complete fucking idiots most of the time.
Yeah.
Is that people are adaptable. And what they're teaching kids now is to not be adaptable, to be completely rigid, completely set in your ways, believe the government, do whatever the state tells you to do, even if that contradicts your own lived experience, and be frightened. Literally, if you put the news on,
be afraid.
Exactly, and it's the news. And these days, that seems to have expanded because I don't watch mainstream TV. Haven't for years. Haven't watched the news, but when you see snippets of it that people share, and you see the general trend of newspaper headlines when you walk past the newsagents and stuff, it's this constant diet of fear and helplessness. And people have to be frightened and helpless because then daddy government will come along and say, oh, I can fix everything. You just have to give me more authority and pay more taxes and we will fix everything.
This is an all-in segment.
I know. We were talking about UFOs. Sorry, wrong meeting. My bad. It's the wrong. Yeah, no, I think it's easy to get the meetings confused, especially when you live in fucking clown world.
Yeah.
But there's an
and we do.
overlap. But there's
There
an
is.
overlap because
There is.
it's like the UFO stuff, particularly with these eggs. I'm stunned that there are people defending these bloody things as vehemently as they are. Because the footage, I mean, have these people seen footage that I haven't seen?
No.
Because the footage I've seen is not remotely convincing. I mean,
it's incredible.
I mean, it is practically Cadbury's cream egg territory. It's like someone's
It's
got
like-
a giant fucking Easter egg, spray painted it white, or
It's like-
enameled it. Or so, I don't know. I mean, it's just so
it's like-
ridiculous.
Somebody commented the other day, all the debunkers are very quiet now.
Yeah, because they're all pissing themselves laughing that you bloody idiots would actually fall for something this blatantly stupid.
So one of the things I keep pointing out to people that they keep going on about debunkers not being able to do things, and I'm like, hold on a minute. That's not how it works. That's not how science works. You're the people making the claim. You need to prove your case, not us. We just need to go, nah, that's not right.
Well, no, the thing about it is it has to stand up to some basic, like, high school level intellectual scrutiny. I mean, we're not talking Einstein or Niels Bohr or Oppenheimer or Tesla or anyone like that. We're not talking super genius level IQs. We're not that Einstein was necessarily super genius, but he was a lot smarter than the rest of people. Allegedly.
Yeah, was he? I still have.
That's a whole other rabbit hole.
As a rabbit hole, because I still have serious doubts about Einstein, especially after he did very little after his wife left him, and she was a Hungarian physicist, I believe.
Well, stranger things have happened, but the point being that you don't have to be on that kind of.
No, you don't.
I'm a professor at MIT level of intelligence to do a bit of critical thinking. And it just seems and I think this applies to all sides of every argument. The amount of critical thinking going on seems to be getting less and less.
Yeah.
And it seems to be getting more polarized. Is that you're suddenly in a particular camp and you have to agree with everything that particular camp thinks, or suddenly you get ostracized and you get cancelled because you happen to have a disagreement about something. And it's just that rigidity, intellectual rigidity, that's not how people are supposed to operate. It's not what's made us an extremely successful species on this planet. And I sometimes wonder, look around at some of the stupid shit people do and some of the violent idiots that are out there, and you just wonder how the hell we've actually made it 6,000 years. And if we're going on the assumption that there was some sort of cataclysm 6,000 years ago, the Le Champ excursion, I think they call it. Was it Le Champ? No, don't think it's that one. Anyway, but the point being that if there is a bottleneck where at some point in the past, 19 out of 20 men on the planet died, and we can tell that from genetics, and there are the female bottlenecks as well, where everyone can be traced back to about 7 or 8 different women. So there are periods where stupendously large numbers of humans have died, and we've somehow managed to survive and thrive and get to where we are now.
Yeah. And
we're just going back to stupid. It's crazy. Maybe it's that cyclical thing that we build ourselves up.
It's utopia.
Well, yeah. It's. I mean, that mouse utopia experiment is something that a lot more people should know about, because it's a fascinating example of, and it's also borne out by things like The Matrix, that classic line where Agent Smith is talking to Morpheus when he's got him and he's torturing him. He said, you know that we created the first version of the Matrix was perfect. We created this perfect world. Everyone had everything they need. You know what? Fell to pieces.
Yep.
And they have to create struggle. And it's kind of, the thing is that we excel in adversity, which is why this constant drumbeat of fear and helplessness from the media in order to control us is so massively toxic. And you can see the effects, because I think the ripple effects of that are being felt in the rest of society. Because when you have that helplessness, people don't feel like they can stand up to bullies or stand up to people doing bad shit with knives. Without going into too much more detail, I think we know what we're all talking about. And this notion that we all have to be disarmed, that the only people that can have any power or authority or weapons are the state.
Yeah.
Because it's just an authoritarian thing. I mean, I'm a firm believer that if every single woman on the planet had a firearm from a certain age and was trained to use it, rapes would disappear. You wouldn't get any more raping. You wouldn't get any more murdering. That if everybody had the ability to defend themselves and was trained to do so, then suddenly robbing and raping and stabbing and stuff becomes much more of a problem. If you're worried that as a potential rapist that you're going to go to a woman and she's actually going to just turn around and shoot you in the head, which I don't want to promote violence, but if to me that's self-defense.
Yeah.
But that's not what the system wants, because if we're not afraid and we're independent and we're adaptable, we can't be controlled.
Exactly.
And I think that bleeds over into the UFO stuff, frankly, because there's too much. People just want to go on.
I think the UFO thing is, in some respects, like adult escapism. It's just people trying to think of how they can get out of situations. Well, not get out of situations, but how the human race can be plucked from its evident course, which seems to be self-destruction.
Yeah. And I mean, it's as a lot of this stuff, that certainly the modern incarnation of ufology and the whole UFO thing started with the X-Files back in the 90s. And to some extent, Close Encounters of the Third Kind did it in the 70s. Star Trek.
A lot of science, there's loads and loads. Science fiction is a massive genre when you think about it.
Yeah, but then at the same time, the X-Files was kind of the first massively mainstream thing that started suggesting things like government cover-ups and Area 51 and the UFO and the aliens are out there. And okay, there was a lot of, the X-Files was 10 odd seasons, so there's an awful lot.
Yeah.
But apart from the alien timeline, which actually made it really enjoyable and compelling to watch. But there's I don't know, it's like there's almost this celebrity to the whole thing, where suddenly if you're if you're claiming that you've been abducted by aliens, then suddenly you become a little bit more special than the next person, which ultimately something about humans is we all want to feel special. And when you have people who, I don't know, bad relationships, bad parenting, feeling really kind of down about themselves, and they have a dream, maybe they're lucid dreaming, and they kind of imagine that they're being taken away somewhere because they've just finished watching an episode of the X-Files, and you get this blending of things that you see and things that you dream. And particularly with the lucid dreaming thing, it can seem very, very real.
Oh, yeah.
And if it's something where you really want to believe, and your whole identity almost is staked on you believing something, that's where you get the venomous attacks from people like you who will go in and say, that just doesn't make any sense.
I don't think I'm venomous. I think I just like to point out the obvious.
Well, yeah, but unfortunately, it's 2025, and pointing out the obvious in a lot of situations is now a criminal offence.
Yeah, I know.
And if it's not a criminal offence, then it's liable to get you cancelled. It's like
I
pointing
know. It's ridiculous.
out the thing about genders. I mean, some of the stuff about the new American president taking office, and some of the videos that have been doing the rounds on places like TikTok and stuff of these people just utterly losing their shit. And it just you'd have thought Lucifer had just taken control of the planet or something. I mean,
But
and at the same time,
Trump,
the people they support can get away with anything.
Trump appears to be a construct in people's minds that bears no relation as to what he's actually like, because the media have driven him into this thing that is he is the Antichrist to a liberal, you know.
I think unfortunately the hysteria surrounding Donald Trump has got to the point that I don't even think Trump himself knows who he's supposed to be anymore.
I know. I mean, the thing that gets me is Trump was a Democrat. He was a Democrat before all this started off.
Sure, but you only have to see the state of the Democrat Party in the US or the Labour Party in the UK to realise that these things have been. I mean, if you, particularly the Labour Party, if you look, I mean, imagine what Aneurin Bevan would have said about the current Labour Party.
Are you playing with your microphone?
Yeah, sorry. But I mean, Bevan, the guy, essentially the creator of the NHS, can you imagine what he would say about Keir Starmer?
I know.
I mean, and I mean, Starmer is he's named Keir after one of the founders of the Labour Party. Can you imagine what his namesake would be saying about him right now? I mean, it beggars belief, and it's. I don't know. I'm not sure how we got to where we are, but something's going to break pretty soon, especially in the UK.
I don't understand these people that you see who still support him unreservedly. They seem to think that he can't do anything wrong, and you know.
I mean, it's the same people that believe in people like Stephen Greer unreservedly. I mean,
yeah, I know.
This is what we're saying, is that it's this phenomenon where people, it's when you get into beliefs, like you were saying earlier, that once you enter the realm of belief, the critical thinking kind of goes out the window. And I think some people also, they stake their entire identity on, in this case, the Labour Party. And it's like, my parents voted Labour, I am Labour. This is what I believe in, and they have to support it, regardless of what it is, because somehow, I don't know, maybe they feel like they're betraying themselves or something if they have any kind of disagreement with it. But that's not how life works. Certainly not if you want to live a healthy, fulfilled, kind of intellectually satisfying existence, that you have to be able to question things. You have to be able to come up with your own opinions.
Mm-hmm.
And the minute that you're not allowed to, it's the same as, and this is true of politics, it's true of ufology, it's true of most things, unfortunately, these days, is that you have the believers, the non-believers, and then the people that are kind of stuck in the middle, just going, what the fuck is going on? I kind of feel like I'm in that. Yeah. So it's like looking at it with this look of bemusement and sometimes terror at just what violently stupid, idiotic, brain dead fucking thing are they going to come up with next?
Oh.
And I mean, we had that for the whole of 2024, pretty much, because I think we did shows most weeks in 2024.
Yeah.
And the all-ins as well. And it doesn't matter whether it's rabbit hole related stuff or like mainstream news related stuff.
Yep.
The level of batshit craziness in a certain section of the population blows my mind. And whether it's a belief in UFOs or a belief in the Labour Party or the Democrat Party or Donald Trump or whatever it is, because you see, I mean, there's crazies everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, you think about it. I mean, you look at some of the things that we've looked into, like Heaven's Gate and all that, and Scientology, and I mean, it's just like, how can anyone with half a brain even consider these things? And yet, these are mainstream religions now.
Thing about Scientologists, they're really clever though, because the Scientologists, because of Dianetics and some of L. Ron Hubbard's other pseudoscientific works, and pseudo psychological works as well, they will tend to get people when they're down, because the second you buy Dianetics, they seem to have your freaking address and they'll start sending people over. Literally, that happened to me when I was at university.
Did you buy Dianetics?
Well, but I was basically having a particularly bad day.
Right.
Was accosted by this woman on the street in Brighton who seemed to exude. And I was in my 20s, so I was stupid. And when you're feeling particularly low, you're much more vulnerable to people who offer hope or offer answers. And then once they have their hook in, they'll sell you the book, and then they'll start trying to sell you the Scientology.
They'll gut you like a fish.
And they are unbelievably persistent, to the point that even if you move out and you tell them you're not living in that place anymore, they will still send people around there. It's crazy.
I once invited a Mormon into the house for a conversation, and he was there with his child. They were doing some kind of, door-to-door stuff, and I said, come in and we'll have a chat. And we had a chat, and as he was leaving, his child said to him, Dad, does this mean that God doesn't exist?
I think that whether God actually exists or not, the belief part of that is important. And without necessarily wanting to take that away from everybody, I think there has to be, it's like the scientists, some of the people who invented the nuclear bomb, for example, managed to still be believers in God and also scientists at the same time. And the two aren't mutually exclusive.
Well, Einstein was religious, wasn't he?
Sure. But at the same time, somehow I'm hesitant to say you have to maintain an air of skepticism, because I don't necessarily think that's the answer, but you have to keep your brain engaged. It's when, and whether it's UFOs or politics or whatever, the minute that someone is showing you a piece of footage that is so blatantly pretty much anything, and it could have been made up, it could be a clever piece of, in this day of AI generated video, disclosure is going to have to be a little bit more than a bloody grainy video of an egg, frankly.
And the other one that gets me is the amount of pictures that are obviously balloons, And when I say balloons, I mean, those mylar balloons, the helium-filled ones? There's over 1 million of them released every, week or something like that. I mean, it's a ridiculous amount of balloons that are released, 10,000 a week or something. And it's like, they are obviously mylar balloons, and it's like, how can you not see that, people? A plane,
don't want to.
Well, that's it. A plane doing 500 mile an hour past the balloon. The balloon's not doing 500 mile an hour. You're doing 500 mile an hour. And it's crazy.
But also, if you think about it, some of those, particularly the weather balloons that go up into the stratosphere,
Yeah.
And I mean, some of them are actually sent up to measure jet streams and things like that. And the winds in the upper atmosphere
Oh yeah.
can easily move 300, 400, 500 miles an
Oh
hour. I mean,
yeah.
it's
Easily.
not a big thing. But it's this lack of critical thinking, and it seems to be encouraged actually by the media and the schools and everything else. And it's they don't really care what you latch onto. You just have to latch onto something and stop thinking about other things, because
Yeah.
it means that they can get away with whatever they want to get away with.
Well, there we go. I think we've probably come to a reasonable conclusion tonight that
Mm?
we think the eggs are a lot of
Bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for all the people who think that we've now got disclosure, but it's not disclosure, and this is all nonsense, and we need to do better.
I actually keep asking people, what if, or my tack is normally, have you considered that there might never be anything to disclose?
Yeah, but then they won't be able to sell any more books.
Yeah, no, but that's the thing, because if you're desperate for disclosure, but there's nothing to disclose, is that actually disclosure if you tell them there's nothing to disclose?
Well, no, they would just say there's nothing to disclose yet.
Yeah, yeah, nanu, Mark. The amount of times I've seen Mark coming out his egg since the egg is ridiculous.
It is a bit. As soon as I started seeing those stories, it was Mork and Mindy was one of the first things I was.
Mhm.
And I mean, as a kid, I used to absolutely love that show because Robin Williams, it doesn't matter whether he was young or old, he was just such a funny man.
Yeah.
And Mork and Mindy was particularly fun because he just got to be as stupid and crazy as he wanted to. But yeah, it's this whole egg thing is a bit too Mork and Mindy for me.
Yeah. I think so I think unfortunately people we're gonna have to mark the eggs down as scrambled.
Yeah. Poached, baked,
I think I might have a
fried.
scrambled egg roll tomorrow. Quite fancy a scrambled egg roll.
Scrambled eggs for breakfast are excellent.
Yes, they are.
In fact, eggs generally are an amazing source of nutrition and shouldn't be disparaged by trying to claim that they're aliens.
Oh, I probably eat about a dozen eggs a week, easy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Thank you very much, Ed. And,
It's a pleasure.
Thank you, everyone that's come along tonight. It's been a blast. It's been great for you.